The gun was already out before she could think. It was pointing at the dog. And Maya Cole did the only thing her body knew how to do. She stepped in front of it. The shot knocked her sideways into the chain-link fence. The blood came fast. Rex was already moving, 70 pounds of German Shepherd finding the shooter's leg with surgical fury. And on the ground, with her left shoulder on fire and the California sun burning overhead, Maya had one single clear thought. She would do it again. If you've ever believed that some people are simply born to protect, stay with this story until the very end. Drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this has traveled. And if this one hits you, subscribe, because this is only the beginning. If that dog bites me, I will put it down myself. And then I'll start on you. Staff Sergeant Victor Harlan said it the way men like him said everything. Loud enough for the people around him to hear, quiet enough to deny later. He was standing at the gate of the K-9 yard with Corporal Brent Solis and Seaman Travis Lowe, and all three of them were wearing the loose, easy posture of men who had never once been told no by someone they couldn't intimidate. Maya Cole did not look up from Rex. She was sitting cross-legged on the concrete floor of the kennel, with the German Shepherd's head in her lap, her fingers working slow circles behind his ears. Rex had his eyes half closed. His breathing was deep and even. 3 hours ago, this same dog had lunged at 2 certified handlers and destroyed a training session that had taken a week to schedule. Right now, he looked like somebody's pet. "You hear me talking to you, ghost girl?" Harlan stepped closer to the gate. "That animal is property of the United States Navy. You are an administrative specialist. You don't have clearance to be in here. You don't have certification to handle that dog. And you don't have the sense to understand why both of those things matter." Maya looked up then, not at Harlan, at Rex. "Hey," she said softly. Just that. The dog's ear twitched. Petty Officer Marcus Webb was leaning against the far wall with his arms folded and the expression of a man watching something he could not explain and had stopped trying to. He had been the kennel supervisor at Pendleton for 6 years. He had seen every certified handler on the West Coast try to work Rex. He had seen Rex destroy 3 training evaluations, refuse food for 48 hours in protest of a new command protocol, and reduce a decorated operator to a string of words that Webb had to pretend he hadn't heard. He had never seen Rex let anyone sit on the floor with him. "Sergeant," Webb said carefully, "the dog is calm. Let her finish." Harlan's eyes moved to Webb. Something shifted in them. "I didn't ask you." "No, sir, you didn't." Solis laughed at that, short and mean. Lowe was quieter, watching Maya with an expression that was harder to read. Maya stood up slowly, keeping one hand on Rex's collar. The dog rose with her, not pulling, not straining, just present. She was 5'4", dark hair loose around her shoulders, wearing a fitted olive-green sports bra and camouflage cargo pants. She looked, as she always looked, like she had wandered into the wrong room and hadn't figured it out yet. That was by design. "I'll come back tomorrow," she told Webb. "You'll come back never," Harlan said. "I'm filing a report with your CO about unauthorized access to a restricted facility. Let's see how that plays with Captain Reeves." He paused. "Or maybe I'll mention it to my uncle. Senator Harlan's office has been very interested in base management lately." Maya walked toward the gate. Rex walked with her, matching her pace exactly. She reached the latch. Harlan was standing 2 feet from it. He didn't move. "Excuse me, Sergeant. Where are you going?" "Back to work." "Back to making coffee and filing paperwork?" Harlan smiled. It didn't reach anything behind it. "That's all you're good for, Ghost Girl. That's all your daddy's name is good for anymore. A dead man's medals don't transfer." Rex made a sound, not a growl exactly, lower than that, a frequency that lived in the chest rather than the throat. Maya's hand tightened on the collar. "Move, please." Harlan moved, just enough. She walked past him and felt the heat of his stare on the back of her neck the whole way to the gate. She did not look back. Her father had taught her that looking back gave people power they hadn't earned. Her father, Captain Daniel Cole, SEAL Team 6, killed in action, Kandahar Province, Afghanistan, October 3rd, 2013. Maya had been 13 years old. She had been wearing a yellow rain jacket at the funeral because her mother couldn't find her dress code in time, and it was raining so hard that it didn't matter anyway. 2 officers had handed her mother a folded flag. Maya had stood very still and counted her own heartbeats to keep from making any sound at all. She had been counting them ever since. She was 22 now. She had been at Pendleton for 4 months, assigned to the administrative division under Captain Lewis Reeves, who had gotten her the posting as a favor to a mutual friend of her father's, and who had never once asked what she was actually capable of. Her job title said Administrative Specialist. Her actual job was making coffee, digitizing personnel records, and not existing too loudly. She was very good at not existing too loudly. Rex was the one thing she hadn't been able to stay invisible about. She had heard about him 3 days after arriving. A Navy-trained explosive detection dog, $62,000 in specialized instruction, declared operationally unsuitable because he refused standardized commands from every handler they assigned him. The disposal order was already in draft when a kennel tech mentioned it offhand in the break room. Maya had finished her coffee, walked to Webb's office, and asked if she could try. Webb had looked at her for a long moment. Then he said yes, mostly because he had already run out of other options. The first day, Rex had paced his kennel and ignored her. She sat on the floor and waited. The second day, he came within 4 feet of her and stopped. She sat on the floor and waited. On the third day, he crossed the kennel, lay down beside her, and put his head in her lap. Webb had been outside the gate each time. He still hadn't written a report about it, because he genuinely didn't know what he would put in the narrative section. 3 months later, Rex was performing detection patterns that the evaluation board had listed as outside his operational capability. He responded to hand signals instead of voice commands. He worked in silence, methodical and absolute, and when he finished a sweep, he returned to Maya's left side and waited. Not because he was trained to, because he chose to. He had chosen her the way certain things choose you, without explanation, without condition, and without any interest in being talked out of it. That afternoon, she was heading back from the training yard when she heard them. Harlan, Solus, low. Voices already loose with whatever they'd had at lunch. She turned the corner and walked directly into them. Well, Harlan looked her over the way he always did, top to bottom, like he was running a calculation. Twice in one day. That's either fate or stupidity. Rex was at her side. His head dropped slightly, his eyes fixed on Harlan. "Just heading back to the office, Sergeant." "Rex looking a little rough. Dog like that, they take him away from his handler. He tends to fall apart." Harlan tilted his head. "What do you think happens to Rex when you get reassigned, Ghost Girl?" "I'm not getting reassigned." "Not yet." Solus said it from the side, grinning. "My CO talked to your CO this morning. Something about unauthorized facility access. Funny how these things work out." Maya's jaw tightened. She kept her face still. "I'd like to pass, please." Harlan stepped to the left. She stepped right. He matched her. "Come on." Lowe's voice had a different note in it. Quieter. Man, let's just go. In a minute. Harlan looked at Rex. Something had shifted in his expression. Something that had moved past posturing into something uglier. How attached are you to this dog, Morrison? Like, scale of 1 to 10. Rex stepped forward. The low sound started again in his chest. That's enough, Maya said. Harlan swung his boot. It was not a warning kick. It was a full, deliberate swing, boot connecting with Rex's ribs with a sound that stopped everything in Maya's body for a half-second. Rex lurched sideways and hit the ground. He scrambled upright immediately, shaking, not understanding what had just happened, looking at Maya for an explanation she didn't have. Something cold moved through her chest. "Touch him again," she said. Her voice was completely flat. "And I will file assault charges. I will attach Lowe's video from 3 months ago of you screaming at a junior seaman until he filed a psych report. And I will personally carry the paperwork to your uncle's office so he can decide whether he wants his name attached to this or not." Silence. Solis took a step back. Lowe had gone very still. Harlan looked at her for a long moment. The drunk amusement had drained out of his face completely. What was underneath it was genuine and mean, and had nothing left to perform for. "You threatening me?" "I'm informing you." "You think your dead father's reputation protects you?" His voice had dropped. "He's been gone 9 years. Nobody remembers him. Nobody cares. You're just a clerk with a borrowed name and a dog that's about to get disposed of anyway. So why don't you step aside before I decide this conversation needs a different ending?" Harlan reached into his jacket. His hand came back out, holding an M9 pistol. Lowe made a sound. "Travis." "Shut up." Harlan's hand was not steady. The M9 was pointed at the space between Maya and Rex, and it was pointed there in the way a weapon gets pointed when the person holding it has not fully decided what they intend to do with it yet, but has decided they want the option. Maya's hands came up, slow and visible. "Sergeant, that weapon needs to go back in your jacket right now." "Or what?" His voice was shaking now too. "You file a report. You talk to my uncle. What exactly do you think is going to happen to you after that, ghost girl? You think this base protects you? You think anyone here is going to go to the wall for Daniel Cole's daughter?" "Travis, man." Lowe's voice was barely above a whisper. "Put it down, please." The gun swung away from Maya. It pointed at Rex. "Let's find out how fast this mutt actually is," Harlan said. Maya did not decide anything. Her body decided for her. 1 step forward. 2. Putting herself in the line between the muzzle and the dog. Her father's voice in the back of her skull, not saying words exactly, but saying something older than words, something that lived in the muscle and the blood. The gun went off. The bullet took her through the left shoulder, entry at an angle, tearing through muscle, missing bone, exiting clean. The impact spun her sideways. She hit the fence with her right shoulder, bounced, went down hard on both knees, and the pain was white and total. And for 2 seconds, there was nothing in the world except the sound of her own breathing. Rex moved. 70 pounds of German Shepherd covered the distance between his position and Harlan's leg in under a second. Harlan screamed. The M9 hit the concrete and skidded. Solis bolted. Lowe stood frozen with his phone out, hands shaking, the video already running. And somewhere in the distance, Webb's voice was shouting for a medic. Maya tried to push herself up. Her left arm would not respond. Warm blood was soaking through her olive-green top, spreading fast. And Rex was still on Harlan, and she needed to call him off before something happened that couldn't be undone. "Rex." Her voice came out steady. She didn't know how. Out! Come! Rex released. He crossed to Maya in 3 steps and pressed himself against her side, his warm weight solid and anchoring. And Maya got her right arm around him and held on. The last thing she saw clearly before the pain dragged her under was Rex's face 6 inches from hers, his amber eyes, his rough tongue finding her cheek once, twice. Then darkness came and took everything. She woke up in the base hospital 40 hours later. Rex was lying against her bed. This violated hospital regulations in at least 4 distinct ways. Nobody had moved him. She turned her head. He lifted his. Those amber eyes found hers immediately, steady and certain, the way they always were. "Hey, careful," she whispered. Rex's tail hit the mattress once. Outside the room, she could already hear it. The particular kind of noise that happens when something has gone too far, been recorded, and cannot be taken back. A nurse passing the door said something into a phone, a word that stopped Maya cold. Millions. Lowe had uploaded the video before anyone could stop him. The story was already everywhere. The hashtag was already running. The name was already circling. Careful, her father's name for her, used without permission by a world that didn't know where it came from. And somewhere at the end of a hallway she hadn't walked yet, something was being set in motion that would take her so far beyond this kennel, this base, this name, that she would not recognize herself on the other side. She didn't know that yet. She just held Rex's collar with her right hand and breathed. Outside the window, California went on without her. It would not go on without her for long. The video had 11 million views by the time Maya could sit up without the room tilting. She knew because the nurse told her, not because she asked. She hadn't asked about any of it. Harlan was in custody. Solis was in custody. Lowe was cooperating with investigators and had apparently not stopped cooperating since the moment the handcuffs came off him. Captain Reeves had been suspended, pending review of 31 buried misconduct complaints. 31, filed over 2 years. Every single one routed quietly into a folder that never reached anyone with the authority or the will to act on it. Maya listened to all of this and felt nothing she could name. Rex was still against her bed. She kept her right hand on his back and stared at the ceiling and tried to locate something inside herself that felt like relief or satisfaction, or even simple anger. She found mostly silence. On the 3rd night, after visiting hours had ended and the hallway outside had gone quiet, the door opened. The man who walked in was not a doctor. He was not base security. He was not anyone she had seen since she was 13 years old, standing in the rain in a yellow jacket, while 2 officers handed her mother a folded flag. Rear Admiral Nathaniel Cross. 3 stars on his collar. A face that looked like it had been through weather she couldn't imagine, and come out the other side, carrying every mile of it. He pulled the chair from the corner of the room, set it beside her bed, and sat down with the careful movement of a man who had rehearsed this moment and still wasn't sure he was ready for it. For a moment, he just looked at her. "You look like him," he said. "Same eyes. Same way of sitting in a room like you've already counted every exit." Maya said nothing. "I wasn't going to come," Cross said. "Then I saw the video." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Maya, I need to ask you something and I need you to answer me honestly." "Okay." "How good are you?" She blinked. "Sir?" "With a rifle. Your father told me he was training you himself. He said you had something he'd never seen in anyone who wasn't already a SEAL. I never got to ask him how far along you were before." He stopped. Let the end of that sentence sit between them. How good are you? Maya looked at Rex. The dog's ears had shifted toward Cross, tracking the voice, measuring it. His body was still relaxed against her bed. That meant something. Rex did not relax around people who couldn't be trusted. Depends on the range, she said. Cross pulled a tablet from under his arm and turned it toward her. The screen showed surveillance footage from a private range she recognized immediately. The timestamp was from 17 days ago. On the screen, she could see herself prone behind her father's Remington 700, firing a measured series of shots at a target she knew was 820 yards downrange. 15 rounds. She watched herself work through the sequence with the particular stillness her father had spent 4 years teaching her. All 15 rounds inside a 6-inch cluster, Cross said. 820 yards. With a compromised shoulder because you'd taken the bullet 2 days before that, and you still went to the range. He set the tablet down. We've been watching you for 7 months. The room temperature dropped 2 degrees. You put surveillance on me, Maya said. I observed you. There's a difference. Is there? Cross didn't flinch. 14 days ago, 3 Americans were taken hostage outside Djibouti. Aid workers. They're being held in a compound that our intelligence believes contains between 10 and 14 IEDs buried throughout the approach routes and foundation. Electronic sweeps have located 3 of them. He pulled up an aerial photograph on the tablet and set it where she could see it. We know there are more. We go in blind, we lose the entire team before they reach the front wall. Maya's eyes moved to the photograph without her permission. She had her father's instincts that way. A compound, outer walls, 2 guard towers, a building that had clearly been something else before it became this. Rex, Cross said simply. The pieces clicked. He'll find the rest, Maya said. He's the best explosive detection dog on the West Coast, possibly the best in the Navy. And he will not work for anyone except you. We've confirmed that 3 times in the last 6 weeks, Cross held her gaze. I need a handler. You're the only one he'll accept. Sir, Maya's voice was careful. I'm an administrative specialist. I have 0 combat experience. My shoulder mobility is currently assessed at 60%, and I took that round 40 hours ago. 65%. Doc cleared you this morning. I already spoke to her. Cross paused. And you are not just an administrative specialist. You have never been just an administrative specialist. You came to this base because I arranged it. And I arranged it because I owed your father a debt I have been trying to find a way to pay for 9 years. The silence that followed was the kind that costs something. He died on a mission you sent him on, Maya said. Cross didn't look away. October 3rd, 2013. I gave the order. The intelligence was solid. The extraction plan was clean. And then it wasn't. And your father walked into a situation that should not have existed. And he handled it the way he handled everything. Which means he put himself between the threat and the people around him. And it killed him. Cross's voice did not break, but it came close. I couldn't save him. I have been asking myself for 9 years if there was a version of that day where I made a different call. Rex lifted his head from the bed. He looked at Cross for a long moment. Then he laid his head back down. There's more, Cross said. He pulled up a photograph on the tablet and turned it toward her again. A woman in a flight suit, grinning at the camera. 30 years old, maybe. The kind of face that looked like it smiled easily and meant it. Standing beside her was a small boy with a crayon drawing in both hands, holding it up like it was the most important thing in the world. The drawing showed a dog. Big ears, stick legs, unmistakably proud. Lieutenant Commander Rose Navarro, Cross said. Navy helicopter pilot. 14 days in captivity. She calls her son Eli every night before she sleeps. She hasn't been able to call for 2 weeks. He let Maya look at the photo. Eli drew that picture of the family dog to send to her. It arrived the day after she was taken. Maya's throat tightened in a way she hadn't expected and couldn't stop. She thought about a yellow rain jacket. She thought about a flag folded into a triangle. She thought about what it felt like to be 5 years old and waiting for someone to come home, and slowly learning, over days and weeks and months, that the waiting was the thing that never ended. "The mission deploys in 36 hours, Cross said quietly. "I need your answer in 12. He stood, straightened his uniform, moved toward the door. "Sir," her voice stopped him. "Why me, really? Not the speech about my father. Why me specifically?" Cross turned. For a moment, he just looked at her, and in his face she could see the weight of a decision that had been sitting there for years, waiting for exactly this room and exactly this conversation. "Because when Harlan pointed that gun at Rex," Cross said, "you didn't calculate. You didn't hesitate. You moved. In my experience, that's not something you teach a person. Either they have it or they don't." He paused. "Your father had it from the day I met him. I watched you on that kennel floor, and I knew." He opened the door. 12 hours, Maya." The door closed. Rex raised his head and looked at her. Maya sat in the dark hospital room with the photograph still on the tablet screen beside her. The small boy and his crayon dog. And she thought about 12 hours, and 36 hours, and 14 days, and 9 years, and how all of those numbers were really just different ways of measuring the same distance between who you were and who you were going to have to become. She called Cross at 0320. "Rex and I are in." She heard him exhale, just once, like he had been holding something and had finally been allowed to put it down. "Hangar 4, he said. 1600 hours. Come ready." The team was already there when she arrived. 4 operators standing near a C-17 in the particular way that SEALs stood near aircraft, which was to say, like men who had done this so many times that all the ceremony had burned off, and what was left was just function. Chief Petty Officer Leon Graves was 40 years old, with a face like a roadmap of every hard decision he had ever made. He looked at Maya the way she had been looked at in every room she had walked into for the last 4 months. And then his eyes moved down to Rex, and something in his expression shifted without entirely resolving. "You're Cole." Not a question. "Yes, Chief." "Your shoulder is compromised." 65% mobility. I've been cleared." By one doctor, Graves looked at the woman beside him. "Doc, check her out." Petty Officer Elena Rivas stepped forward. She was 34 with dark blonde hair and hands that moved with the confident economy of someone who had done triage in places that did not allow for anything except necessary motion. She checked Maya's wound without comment, rotated the shoulder through its range, pressed 2 specific points that made Maya's vision go white at the edges, and watched her face the whole time. Maya kept her face still. "Entry and exit clean," Doc said. "No bone involvement. Full mobility in another 4 to 5 days." She held Maya's gaze. "Right now, it's going to feel like someone is running a hot wire from your shoulder to your jaw every time you move that arm. You'll have maybe 70% before it degrades under load." A pause. "You sure?" "Yes." Doc looked at Graves and gave one small nod. Graves studied Maya for 3 full seconds. Then he turned to the rest of the team. "Wraith, Breacher, this is Cole. She's our canine handler. She keeps the dog alive and functional. That's her job, and it is the only job she has until I say otherwise." His eyes came back to Maya. You do not engage without a direct order from me. You do not leave your position without a direct order from me. You are here because of Rex, and Rex is here because those hostages are not coming home without him. Are we clear? Clear, Chief. Good. He turned toward the aircraft. Mount up. Wheels up in 20. Maya followed with Rex at her side. She found a seat along the wall, buckled in, felt Rex settle across her feet with the immediate totality of a dog who had decided the floor was his. She put her hand on his back. 3 hours into the flight, someone sat down beside her. Wraith. Callum Steele, 36, quiet in the way that certain very capable people were quiet. Like the silence was something they had earned, rather than defaulted to. He nodded at the rifle case at her feet.
Custom stock.
It was my father's. Wraith was quiet for a moment. I was in Afghanistan with Daniel Cole in 2011, 2 years before Kandahar. He looked at the case. Best shot I ever saw work, and I've seen a lot of shots. Another pause. His instincts weren't something you trained into a person. You either had them or you didn't. Maya looked at him. You're trying to tell me something. I'm trying to tell you that Graves will not say it, so someone should. Wraith met her eyes. You're not here as a liability. You're here because Cross believes you're the only person who can do what needs to be done. And Cross has been right about people longer than I've been in this uniform. He stood. Get some sleep. Djibouti is 6 hours out, and the ground is going to ask more of you than this aircraft does. He moved back up the fuselage. Maya looked down at Rex. The dog was already watching her. Calm. Certain. Those amber eyes reflecting the red cabin lights like 2 small fires. Somewhere ahead, a woman named Rose Navarro was sitting in a dark room counting the days, and a boy named Eli was waiting by a phone that wasn't ringing. Maya closed her eyes. She let herself feel the weight of the Remington case against her leg. Her father's rifle. His hands on this stock. His eye behind this scope. His voice telling her about wind and distance and the space between heartbeats where the shot either was or wasn't. She did not sleep, but she rested. And 6 hours later, the ramp opened over East Africa, and the dark came up to meet her. They landed hard in scrub desert 8 miles from the target, and Rex was on his feet before Maya had finished releasing the jump harness. That was the first thing Graves noticed. Not Maya's landing, not her shoulder, not whether she'd held form on the descent. He watched Rex hit the ground, shake once, and immediately press against Maya's left leg, with his nose already working the air. Graves had seen trained detection dogs take 3 to 5 minutes to reorient after a combat jump. Rex had taken 4 seconds. Graves said nothing. He just started moving. The march began at 01:30. 8 miles of broken terrain in complete darkness. No lights, no unnecessary sound. Graves handed Maya 40 extra pounds of gear before they stepped off, without explanation or warning. Just held the pack out and waited. She took it. Shouldered it without a word. Her left arm screamed from collarbone to elbow. She did not mention it. Wraith fell into step behind her. He didn't say anything either. But she felt him adjusting his pace to match hers, staying close enough to catch her if the shoulder gave out under load, far enough back to let her pretend he wasn't. Mile 2. Rex froze. He stopped mid-stride, one paw lifted, nose locked on a patch of ground 6 feet ahead. Maya's fist came up immediately. The team halted. Rex moved forward 2 steps and sat, staring at the exact same spot with the focused stillness of a dog who had found what he was trained to find and was waiting for the humans to catch up. Graves crouched beside the spot. His hands moved carefully through the dirt. 30 seconds later, he stood up and looked at Maya with an expression that had shifted 2 degrees from where it started. "Soviet-era pressure mine," he said quietly. "Rearmed recently." Rex was already looking at Maya, waiting. "Good boy," she told him. Just that. Rex stood and moved back to her left side, and they kept walking. Mile 5. Rex sat again. American-manufactured IED. Newer placement. Better concealed than the first. Breacher whistled under his breath and got a sharp look from Graves that stopped the sound immediately. By the time they reached 300 yards from the compound wall, something had changed in the way the team moved around Maya. Not dramatically. Not the kind of change that anyone would announce. But Solis's shoulder was no longer turned away from her when they stopped. And Doc had started handing her the water before she asked for it. And Breacher had stopped calling her the handler and started calling her Cole. Small things. The kind that meant everything. At 300 yards, Rex began the systematic sweep Maya had spent 3 months building with him. Hand signals only. No voice. No commands. Just the private language they had developed in a kennel at Pendleton, while a disposal order sat in someone's inbox. Rex worked left to right in overlapping arcs, methodical and silent, pausing every time something registered, sitting to mark each location while Maya noted the coordinates on her tactical map. He found 11 IEDs in 90 minutes. When she showed Graves the completed map, the chief stared at it for a long time without speaking. The electronic sweeps had found 3. Rex had found 11. The difference between those 2 numbers was the difference between a successful extraction and a mass casualty event. "If we'd gone in blind," Doc said quietly, looking at the map over Graves' shoulder. "We'd all be dead," Wraith finished. He looked at Rex with something that was not quite awe, but lived in the same neighborhood. That dog just saved every person on this team. Graves looked up from the map. He looked at Maya. "Your dog is a miracle." "He's good at his job, Chief." "So are you." Graves turned back to the map and pointed. "East wall. Clean approach. No IEDs as far as Rex can confirm. There's a drainage pipe under the foundation. Breacher can crack it open. We go in from below." He straightened. "Cole, the ridge. You have overwatch." An hour later, Maya was prone on the high ground 780 yards north. Remington chambered, scope up. Wraith settled beside her with the spotter scope. Below them, the team was moving into position at the east wall, 4 shadows becoming part of the dark. "Wind is 7 knots left to right," Wraith said quietly, "gusting to 10. Maya had already calculated it. She had been calculating since she set up the rifle. Her shoulder was a sustained white noise of pain that she had stopped trying to manage and started treating as information, the way her father had taught her. Pain tells you where the problem is, then you work around it. "See that rock?" Wraith said. 600 yards, size of a cantaloupe. Graves' voice came through her earpiece. "Morrison, verify your 0. Maya found the rock in her scope. Wind, elevation, heart rate at 64 beats per minute, shoulder accounting for a 3-degree cant in her natural hold. She fired. The rock exploded. "Hit," Wraith confirmed. "Lucky shot," Graves said through the radio. "Do it again." Wraith pointed to a second rock, 700 yards, smaller. Maya adjusted without comment. Fired. The second rock shattered. Breacher's voice came over the radio, with one word that Graves cut off before it finished. "One more," Graves said. "Moving target. There's a jackal running northeast, 500 yards. Put around 5 feet in front of it. Don't hit the animal." Maya found the jackal in her scope. Unpredictable movement, quartering away. She tracked it, calculated the lead. Fired. Dust kicked up exactly 5 feet ahead of the running animal. It veered hard left and disappeared into the dark, unharmed. Silence on the radio for 3 full seconds. Then Graves' voice, quieter than she had heard it. "Don't call her the handler. Ever again." A pause. "You've got Overwatch, Cole. Don't waste it." The breach began. Breacher's charges opened the drainage pipe with a sound that carried further than anyone wanted. Maya shifted her scope to the compound, tracking the guard towers, watching the second-floor windows where the hostages were supposed to be. Her team was inside now, invisible to her, and she was their only set of eyes on the outside. 3 tangos, ground floor, northeast corner," she reported. "Moving toward your position." "Copy," Graves said. "We see them." Controlled gunfire from inside. Short bursts, then silence. "Ground floor secure. 3 tangos down. Advancing to floor 2. Maya kept scanning. A hostile emerged from a side door, running hard toward a technical truck with a mounted machine gun. If he reached it, the team's extraction route became a kill zone. 600 yards. Moving target. She fired. The man dropped. "Tango down, west side," she said. "Good shot. Continuing advance." A second man sprinted for the same truck. She chambered, found him, led him, fired. He went down 6 feet from the vehicle. "Taking heavy fire." Graves's voice had an edge now. "Multiple tangos, floor 2. Doc, on me. Breacher, cover the stairs." Then everything changed. "Hostages located." Graves again. 3 personnel. 2 mobile, 1 critical. Marsh has internal injuries, calling for immediate exfil. Maya processed that word. Critical. Someone was badly hurt. The extraction timeline had just compressed from planned to desperate. She was still processing it when Rex pressed against her leg. She looked where he was looking. Headlights. 3 vehicles coming from the south, moving fast, packed with armed men. She grabbed her binoculars. 15, maybe 20 fighters. 3 minutes out at their current speed. "Contact," she said into the radio. "Enemy reinforcements, south approach. 3 vehicles, 15 to 20 hostiles. ETA 3 minutes. Graves's voice came back hard and immediate. "Helicopter ETA? 7 minutes." 4 seconds of silence that felt like 4 years. "We are not going to make it," Wraith said beside her. He wasn't saying it to panic. He was saying it because it was true, and both of them knew it. Maya looked at the lead vehicle through her scope. The engine block, the distance. "Chief," her voice was level, "I can stop the lead vehicle, force them to dismount. Buys you 4 minutes. "How far?" She didn't want to say the number. 2,200 yards. Wraith went absolutely still beside her. Graves came back. "That is outside the effective range of that rifle, Cole." "I know what it is." "Wraith," Graves's voice. "Is it possible?" Wraith looked at Maya, not at the target, at her. For 2 full seconds, he just looked at her face, and whatever he was calculating behind his eyes had nothing to do with ballistics. "Honest answer," Graves said. "Can she make that shot?" "I don't know," Wraith said. "But I know she's the only person on this team who has any business trying." "Cole." Graves's voice came down to something quieter, more direct. "Honest answer. Can you make this shot?" Maya looked at the lead vehicle through her scope. It was moving at speed, a tiny shape at an impossible distance. The engine block smaller than her thumbnail at arm's length. The drop compensation required aiming 30 feet above and ahead of it. The wind drift across 2,200 yards of East African night air would push the round sideways by a margin that would make most shooters laugh and walk away. Her father's record with this rifle was 3,200 yards. Afghanistan, 2009. She knew the conditions of that shot because he had described them to her 7 times. always in the same words, always with the same expression. "Baby girl, you're not shooting where the target is. You're shooting where physics says the bullet and the target will meet. Trust the math." "I don't know," she said, "but I'm the only one who can try." "Do it. We're loading now. You have 3 minutes." The calculations she ran were the hardest she had ever done, not because the numbers were complicated, but because the cost of getting them wrong was people she knew. Wind speed, temperature, humidity, bullet drop over 2,200 yards, vehicle speed, lead compensation for 4+ seconds of flight time. She cranked her scope adjustments past ranges it had been designed for. She physically canted the rifle upward until her crosshairs were aimed at empty air 30 feet above and ahead of where the vehicle actually was. Rex pressed against her leg and stayed there. She breathed down to 61 beats per minute. Her shoulder was a fire she had stopped feeling. Everything had compressed into the scope, the vehicle, the math, and the space between heartbeats where her father had told her the shot either lived or didn't. She pulled the trigger. 4.3 seconds of flight time. The lead vehicle's engine detonated in a burst of steam and smoke. The truck swerved violently, flipped onto its side, rolled twice, and came to rest, blocking the road. The second vehicle hit the wreckage at speed. The third locked its brakes and slid sideways. Armed men poured out into the open, disorganized, suddenly on foot, no plan. "She hit it." Breacher's voice, barely a whisper. "At 2,200 yards, she hit it." "Morrison." Graves's voice was different now, something in it that she had not heard before. "You just made history. Get to secondary exfil, half-mile west. Move now." She was already moving. Rex with her, the two of them running through the dark, while behind them the Blackhawk's rotors cut the night air, and her team loaded a stretcher and a pilot named Rose Navarro, who had been waiting 14 days for someone to come. Maya ran. Her shoulder burned. Her legs burned. Rex matched her stride for stride. They reached the exfil point in 8 minutes. The Blackhawk swept back, dropped, and the moment her boots left the ground and the ramp closed behind her, something she had been holding in her chest for the entire night finally loosened its grip. Inside the aircraft, Doc was working on Bobby Marsh, who was pale but breathing. Keith Donovan sat with his head in his hands. And Rose Navarro, face streaked with dust and 2 weeks of sleepless fear, reached across the bay and grabbed Maya's arm with both hands and held on. She tried to say something. The words didn't come. She just held on. Maya looked down. Rex had already put his head in her lap. His eyes were closed. His breathing was deep and even, the same rhythm she had first felt when she sat down on a kennel floor at Pendleton and waited for him to decide she was worth trusting. She put her hand on his side and felt him breathe. Below them, East Africa fell away into darkness, and somewhere in San Diego, a boy named Eli was asleep with a crayon drawing on his nightstand, not knowing yet that his wait was almost over. The nightmare started on the second night back. Not of the vehicles, not of the men she had shot covering the courtyard. The nightmare was always the same. The sniper at 1,100 yards. The way his shape had gone backward through her scope, and the specific sound her own breathing had made in the silence after. She woke at 02:30 with Rex already sitting up beside her, watching her face in the dark the way he watched everything, with the absolute patience of a creature who had decided her problems were his problems and was prepared to wait out every single one of them. She sat on the edge of the cot and put both hands on his back and breathed. Wraith found her on the fourth night on the bathroom floor of the temporary quarters, back against the wall, Rex pressed against her side. He didn't say anything about what it meant that she was sitting on a bathroom floor at 3 in the morning. He just sat down against the opposite wall and stayed there. "First time is different from what people tell you," he said finally. "Everyone said it gets easier. Everyone who says that is either lying or they stopped feeling it a long time ago, and they can't tell the difference anymore." Wraith looked at Rex. "Your father threw up behind a Humvee after his first firefight in Fallujah. Did you know that?" Maya looked up. "He told me himself," Wraith said. 2003. He'd taken out 4 insurgents in under 2 minutes to protect his team. And afterward, he walked behind the vehicle and lost everything he'd eaten that day. He said the hardest part wasn't the act. It was realizing he could do it again if he had to. A pause. He carried that for 20 years, and he never once let it make him into something colder than he wanted to be. Wraith stood. "You won't either." He left her there with Rex and the quiet, and somehow, that was exactly the right thing to do. 10 days after Djibouti, Cross summoned her to the Pentagon. Full dress uniform, the Secretary of the Navy, 3 admirals. A silver star for actions above and beyond in direct support of a hostage rescue operation. Media present, controlled pool, 3 cameras, the kind of carefully managed public moment that the military needed right now, and that Maya needed, the way she needed a second bullet wound. She stood on the stage with Rex, sitting at attention beside her, and absorbed the words of the citation without really hearing them. Extraordinary precision, tactical excellence, decisive action under extreme pressure. The Secretary of the Navy pinned the medal to her uniform, and the applause was loud and certain, and felt completely disconnected from everything that had actually happened in East Africa. Afterward, at the podium, she looked at her prepared remarks for exactly 2 seconds. Then she set them aside. "I accept this on behalf of my team," she said. "Every person who went into that compound and came back out. And in memory of my father, Captain Daniel Cole, who taught me that the hardest shots are never the ones you take. They're the ones you choose not to." She paused. "He carried that understanding for 20 years. I'm still learning what it costs." The applause that followed was more uncertain than before. Shorter. The kind of applause that meant people weren't sure whether they had just been honored or challenged. Cross caught her in the hallway afterward. "That wasn't what we discussed." "No, sir. The public needs simple narratives, Cole. The public needs to understand that the people they send into harm's way are human beings making impossible choices, not weapons they can feel good about pointing." Her voice was harder than she intended. She softened it deliberately. "My father carried the weight of every one of those choices for 2 decades. I'm not going to stand at a podium and pretend it's uncomplicated." Cross studied her for a long moment. Something moved through his expression that wasn't quite disagreement. "You are exactly like him," he said finally. "Stubborn as weather and twice as honest." He put his hand briefly on her good shoulder. "Come see me tomorrow morning. There's something you need to know before anyone else tells you." She was in his office at 700. Cross pulled up an intelligence brief and set it in front of her without preamble. Photographs. Transcribed communications in Arabic with English translations. A name she hadn't heard before. Yusuf al-Rashid. Codename, The Shepherd. 31 confirmed kills across 4 conflict zones. Second in command of a regional arms network whose disruption, according to the brief, had set their operational capacity back by at least 8 months. The sniper she had killed at 1,100 yards. "Okay," Maya said carefully. Cross turned to the next page. Another photograph. A man in his early 40s, harder-faced than his brother, with a particular stillness in his eyes that Maya had learned to recognize in certain people. the kind of stillness that didn't come from peace. Samir al-Rashid, Cross said, 43 years old, former Yemeni Special Forces, defected to militant networks in 2015, 61 confirmed kills. Cross's voice was measured in the way that voices got measured when the information they were carrying had real weight. He knows who killed his brother. We intercepted this communication 4 days ago. He turned the tablet toward her. The translation read, "The American woman, Navy. I have her name. I have her face. I have already studied her patterns. She will understand what it means to lose someone before this is finished." The office went very quiet. "He's already in the United States," Cross said. "Entered through the southern border 11 days ago. False Canadian passport. Last confirmed sighting was San Diego County." A pause. 6 days ago. Maya's mind ran the calculation before she could stop it. 11 days in. Last seen 6 days ago. She had been back at Pendleton for 10 days. He had been in San Diego while she was sleeping 20 minutes from the base perimeter. "What are my options?" she said. "Witness protection. New identity. Relocation. We hunt him down while you're out of reach. Could take weeks. Could take months." Cross watched her face. "Or we use you as bait. Controlled environment. You walk regular patterns. You're visible. 12 counter-sniper teams cover every angle within 2,000 yards. When Samir takes his shot, we triangulate and neutralize." "If I go into protection, who's at risk?" Cross didn't answer immediately, and the silence was its own answer. "He'll look for leverage," Maya said. "People close to me on base. Webb. Anyone from the kennel." "That's our assessment, yes." Maya looked at Rex. The dog was watching her with those amber eyes, reading something in her face that she hadn't put into words yet. "I'll be bait," she said. Cross nodded slowly, like a man who had expected this and still wasn't entirely comfortable with it. "I thought so. We set up at the abandoned logistics facility 8 miles from main base. Open ground, controlled access, clear sight lines in every direction. Graves and his team have already volunteered for counter-sniper positions." He paused. "All 3 of them, without being asked." Something moved through Maya's chest that she didn't have a name for. "When do we start?" she said. "After you sleep. Tomorrow morning." The facility was 10 acres of open concrete and empty buildings, and Maya walked her 4 daily patterns like clockwork from day 1. 700, 1100, 1500, 1800, 30 minutes each. Rex at her left side, both of them visible and unhurried in the particular way that bait needed to be visible and unhurried. Graves watched from a concealed position 800 yards northwest. Wraith had the ridge. Dock and Breacher covered the south and east approaches. Day 3, nothing. Day 5, nothing. Day 7. On day 8, Rex changed. Not explosives alert. Something older than that. Something that lived below the trained response and the instinct layer that no handler ever fully taught a dog, because it was already there when they arrived. He went tense at Maya's left side during the 1100 pattern. Not straining, not growling, just suddenly, completely present in a way that was different from his usual working focus. "Rex has something," Maya said quietly into her radio. Every team went active simultaneously. They swept the perimeter for 4 hours. A building 1,000 yards northwest showed disturbed dust and 2 spent cigarette ends when the tactical team reached it. The position had a direct sightline to Maya's 1100 pattern route. Whoever had been there had left clean, reading the response time with professional patience. "He's not here to shoot you, yet," Wraith said that evening. "He's learning us, testing reaction time, mapping our coverage, finding the gaps." He looked at the building schematic. "He's more disciplined than his brother. He'll wait until he's certain. Day 9. Day 10. On day 11, during the 1-100 pattern, Maya's radio crackled with a voice she had never heard. Quiet. Accented English. Completely controlled. "Sergeant Maya Cole." Every person on the security net went rigid. Maya kept walking. Rex stayed at her left side, matching her pace exactly, but his head had dropped half an inch, and his eyes had fixed on the middle distance. He knew. He had known before the voice finished saying her name. "Who is this?" Maya said. "You know who I am." A pause. "I have been watching you for 11 days. I know which pattern you favor. I know your dog alerts left before he alerts right. I know your shoulder still bothers you in cold morning air." Another pause. "I know you were not afraid of me. I find that interesting." The tech team was already working. Maya signaled them with 2 fingers at her side without breaking stride. "If you want to talk," she said, "let's talk." "I don't want to talk," Samir said. "I want you to understand something before the end. My brother was not a monster. He was a man who had nothing left to lose because people wearing your uniform took everything from him first. His wife, his daughters. A bomb with perfect intelligence and wrong coordinates." His voice was even throughout, which was somehow worse than anger. "Raya and Noor, 6 and 8 years old. They liked to draw pictures of birds. He kept them in his jacket until the day you killed him." The tech team flashed a location signal. "Building 1000, 50 yards northwest, 4th floor." Maya kept walking. Rex kept pace. She thought about her father's training journal. She thought about a boy named Eli and a crayon drawing of a dog. She thought about all the ways grief could go, the directions it could turn a person, the things it could make someone capable of that they would never have recognized in themselves before the loss. "I'm sorry about Raya and Noor," she said, and she meant it completely. Silence on the radio for 4 full seconds. "You're trying to humanize yourself," Samir said. "It won't work." "I'm not trying to do anything. I'm telling you the truth. I didn't drop that bomb. I didn't choose that target. And I know that doesn't change what happened to them. And I know it doesn't change what you lost. And I know you didn't call me to hear that." Maya stopped walking. Rex stopped with her. "I called you something. You called me something. So call it, or tell me what you actually want." A long pause, long enough that Graves' voice came through her earpiece, tight and controlled. "Cole, keep him talking. We're moving teams." "What I want," Samir said, "cannot be given back. You know this. You lost your father. You know what it means when something is simply gone." His voice shifted slightly, something underneath the control. "I have been doing this for 9 years, Sergeant. Killing and being shot at and watching people die for causes that change their names but never their faces. I am very tired." Maya heard it. The thing under the words. Not weakness. Something older and heavier than weakness. "Then stop," she said quietly. "It is not that simple." "I know. But it's also not as complicated as you've been telling yourself." Her voice dropped further. "Samir, your nieces drew pictures of birds. What do you think they would want you to do with the years they didn't get to have?" The radio went silent. Somewhere in a building 1,050 yards away, a man with 61 confirmed kills and a photograph of 2 little girls in his jacket was sitting with a rifle and a decision that had only 2 directions. Maya stood in the open and waited. Rex pressed against her leg and stayed absolutely still. And the whole world held its breath. 90 seconds passed, and Samir al-Rashid said nothing. Every counter-sniper team was frozen on their triggers. Graves had stopped breathing. The FBI coordinator was murmuring coordinates into his radio in the tight, controlled voice of a man holding himself back from giving an order he wanted very badly to give. Maya stood in the open, with Rex against her leg, and did not move. Then Samir's voice came back. Something in it had cracked open slightly, like a wall that had been standing for years and had finally found the one pressure point it couldn't hold against. Raya wanted to be a doctor, he said. She told her father she would fix people. Noor wanted to draw animals for books. A pause. They were afraid of the dark. Both of them. Yusuf used to leave a light on in the hallway every night, even after they fell asleep, because he couldn't stand the thought of them waking up scared. His voice dropped further. The airstrike happened at night. Maya closed her eyes for 1 second, just one. "I'm sorry," she said. "I am so sorry. There is nothing I can say that makes that smaller, and I'm not going to try." "Then why are you still talking?" "Because I think you called me for a reason that isn't the reason you told yourself when you picked up the radio." She kept her voice level, no performance in it, just the plain truth the way her father had always spoken it. "You could have taken the shot 3 days ago. You had the position, you had the angle. You had everything you needed and you didn't do it." She paused. "Why didn't you do it, Samir?" Silence. "Why?" she said again. Not pressing, just asking. The radio stayed quiet for so long that Graves touched her earpiece and she heard him breathe, ready to give the order. She held up one finger at her side. "Wait." "Because I watched you with that dog," Samir said finally. "For 11 days I watched you. Every pattern. Every morning." Another pause. "The way you talk to him when you think no one can hear you. The way he sleeps against you. My daughters were that way with their cat. A gray cat named Smoke, who slept on Raya's pillow every night." His voice had lost its control completely now. Not loudly. The quiet way people lose it when they have been holding something for years and suddenly their hands don't work anymore. "I came here to kill you, and instead I watched you love a dog, and all I could think about was Raya and Noor and Smoke and the light Yusuf left on in the hallway." Graves had gone completely still in his position. Wraith was watching through his spotter scope and had not said a word. "Then come down," Maya said. "Walk away from this. Not for me. For them. Give the years they didn't get to someone who deserved them. If I walk away, your people will hunt me." I know. She meant what came next, and she said it clearly. "I will tell them you cooperated. I will tell them you chose to end this without more death. I cannot promise you what happens after that. I won't insult you with a promise I can't keep. A breath. But I can promise you that if you pull that trigger right now, it will not bring Raya and Noor back. It will not bring Yusuf back. It will bring nothing back. It will only add your name to the list of things that are simply gone." The FBI coordinator's voice hit her earpiece hard. "Cole, we have the position confirmed. All teams are ready. Give the word or stand down. You have 10 seconds. Maya pulled her earpiece out. She dropped it on the concrete. Graves' voice came from somewhere behind her, distant and sharp. "Cole, what are you doing?" She unclipped her sidearm from her hip, set it on the ground, stood up straight, arms open at her sides, completely exposed to 1,050 yards of open California afternoon. Every person watching through a scope stopped breathing simultaneously. "Samir," she said into the radio, "I'm unarmed. If you're going to end this, end it right now. Or put down the rifle and walk away and let us both go home." Graves was moving toward her. She could hear his boots on the concrete. "Morrison, that is a direct order to stand down right now." She didn't move. Rex sat at her feet and pressed against her leg and looked up at her face with those amber eyes. And he didn't move either. 30 seconds. 60. Through the spotter scopes that Wraith and 3 other teams were watching through, they saw the rifle barrel behind the 4th floor window shift, adjust. The shape behind it going still in the particular way a shooter went still before they fired. Wraith's hand found his own trigger. 90 seconds. The shape behind the window did not fire. It shifted again. Then, slowly, the rifle barrel withdrew from the window. The FBI coordinator was screaming for authorization. Graves had reached Maya and grabbed her arm, and she let him, because the authorization decision wasn't hers anymore. Cross's voice cut through every radio simultaneously. "All teams' weapons hold. Do not fire. Let him move." Samir al-Rashid appeared outside the building 30 seconds later. He was walking, not running. Rifle slung across his back, hands open and visible at his sides. The walk of a man who had made a decision and was carrying it with whatever dignity he had left. He walked to a car parked 400 yards from the building, got in, started the engine, pulled onto the road and drove north, and did not look back. The FBI coordinator's voice was shaking with controlled fury. "We had him. We had a clean shot on a confirmed hostile, and you let him walk off American soil." "We had a man who chose not to pull the trigger," Maya said. "That is not the same thing as a confirmed hostile. He entered this country to kill you. And he didn't. That was his choice, and it cost him something real to make it. You want to turn that into another body on a report? You go ahead and explain to whoever reviews this why we shoot men for decisions they didn't make." Silence on the net. Graves stood beside her. He looked at her for a long time with the expression of a man recalculating something fundamental. Then he picked up her sidearm from the concrete and held it out to her, grip first. "That," he said, "was the most insane thing I have watched a human being do in 20 years of service." "Did it work?" "You're breathing. He's gone." Graves looked at where the car had disappeared. "Yeah, it worked." He paused. "Your father used to say that the hardest discipline wasn't pulling the trigger. It was knowing when putting it down took more courage." He handed her the sidearm. "I owe you an apology, Cole. From day one." "You were doing your job, Chief." "I was doing my assumptions." He met her eyes. "There's a difference." Her legs let go then. She sat down hard on the concrete, and Rex was on her immediately, his full weight pressing into her side, his head against her chest. She put both arms around him and held on, and let herself feel the full weight of everything that had been compressed into the last 11 days. Djibouti, and the shots, and the nightmares, and the bathroom floor, and Samir's voice, and Raya, and Noor, and a light left on in a hallway for 2 little girls who were afraid of the dark. She held Rex and breathed and let it move through her. 2 hours later, her phone received a text from a number that didn't exist in any directory. "I chose not to become what killed my children. That is the only justice that belongs to them now. Your dog has good eyes, Sergeant. He saw something in you, worth protecting." So did I, in the end. Do not waste it. She read it twice. Then she showed it to Wraith, who was sitting beside her on the steps of the temporary quarters in the early evening with 2 cups of coffee. He read it, set the phone down, picked up his coffee. "You turned an enemy into a non-enemy," he said. "You know how rare that is? Any operator can neutralize a threat. Barely anyone can make a threat decide not to be one." He looked at her. "Your father would be losing his mind right now, in the best way." She almost smiled. Almost. 6 weeks later, Naval Special Warfare Center, Coronado. No cameras, no press pool, no carefully managed public narrative. Just uniforms and families, and the specific quiet that settled over military spaces when something real was happening. Maya stood at attention in front of the assembled personnel and let Cross pin the unit patch to her uniform. A dog and handler silhouetted against a scope reticle. The word Reaper arced above it, her father's call sign, her unit's name. Graves, Doc, Wraith, and Breacher stood behind her in dress uniform. Every one of them had volunteered the transfer without being asked. Rex sat at Maya's left side in his official K9 SOG vest, with the bearing of a dog who had been waiting his entire life for someone to give him a job worth doing. Cross spoke quietly, the way he spoke when he meant something. This unit exists because of what you proved. Not the distance record, not the shots you made in Djibouti. He paused. Because you proved that the hardest part of this work is knowing the difference between what you can do and what you should do. Your father knew that difference his whole career. You learned it in 6 weeks under fire. He stepped back. Unit Reaper is active. God help whoever needs it. After the ceremony, someone touched her arm. Rose Navarro. Civilian clothes, no rank, pilot's posture still there like it was built into her spine. A small boy holding her hand with both of his, the way children held hands when they didn't intend to let go. Eli wanted to come, Rose said. Her voice was still rough around the edges, in the way that 2 weeks of captivity left on a person and didn't fully leave. I told him the person who helped bring me home had a dog. That was all it took. Eli looked up at Maya with serious dark eyes. He was 5 years old and had his mother's exact face in miniature. He looked at Rex first, long and careful, the way children looked at dogs they had decided to trust. Then he looked at Maya. Is that careful? He said. Maya looked at Rose. I told him the call sign, Rose said quietly. He's been calling you that since the night I came home. Maya crouched down to Eli's level. Rex moved with her, sitting immediately, letting the boy look at him without pressure. Yeah, Maya said. That's me. Eli considered this with the full gravity of a 5-year-old processing important information. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper and held it out to Maya with both hands. She unfolded it. A crayon drawing. A girl with long dark hair and a big dog with amber eyes. Above them, in unsteady letters that had clearly been worked on for a while, Careful and Rex. Maya's throat closed entirely. I made it for you, Eli said, because you helped bring my mom back. She folded it carefully and put it in her breast pocket against her chest. She could not speak for a moment. She just looked at this boy with his mother's eyes and his crayon drawing, and the absolute uncomplicated certainty of someone who had not yet learned to make gratitude complicated. Thank you, Eli, she said finally. I'm going to keep this. That evening, she walked to the memorial wall on the eastern edge of the base, alone. Rex walked with her. Her father's name was carved in the granite among hundreds of others, and she had been here before. But tonight felt different from every time before. Tonight she had something to give back. She took the silver star from her pocket. She had been carrying it loose since the Pentagon, unable to find a place for it that felt right. She set it at the base of the wall, beneath her father's name. It felt like returning something to the person it actually belonged to. I think I understand now, she said, not loudly, just talking the way she'd always talked to him in her head. The running conversation that had never stopped, even after the folded flag and the rain and the yellow jacket. About the wind and the distance. About the math you trust and the moment you don't. About all the shots you take and all the ones you put down. And how knowing the difference is the only thing that keeps you human while you do this. She put her hand flat on the stone. I'm going to try to keep being human, Dad. That's what I can promise you. Rex pressed against her leg. He had been pressing against her leg, one side or the other, since a kennel floor in Pendleton, where she had sat down and waited, and he had come to her on his own terms. He would keep pressing against her leg for as long as she needed the weight of him there. Her phone buzzed. Cross. Somalia, he said. 3 aid workers. Compound suspected to contain IEDs. Hostile controlled territory. A pause. Sound familiar? When? 12 hours. You and Rex. Maya looked at her father's name in the stone. She thought about Eli's drawing in her breast pocket. She thought about Samir's car disappearing up a California road, and the choice he had made, and what it had cost him to make it. And she thought about the light Yusuf had left on in a hallway for 2 little girls who were afraid of the dark, and how that light had been in her chest since she first heard about it, burning quietly, reminding her what this was actually for. "We're ready," she said. She walked back through the base in the early dark with Rex at her left side, the same way they had walked every pattern at the logistics facility. Except this time, there was no bait, and no counter-sniper teams, and no one watching from the shadows. Just her and her dog, and the weight of what came next, and the specific calm that settled into her bones when she knew her direction. She packed her father's Remington. She checked the chamber. She wrote the letter she kept in her desk drawer, the one that started, "If you're reading this," and ended with, "Be careful, but never. Stay safe." And she sealed it and locked it away. Then she picked up Rex's vest and held it out. He walked into it without hesitation, the way he walked into everything with her, trusting completely, choosing her the same way he had chosen her on a kennel floor 4 months ago, with a disposal order 3 days from processing. Graves was already at the aircraft when she arrived. Doc was checking supplies. Breacher was telling the story, to nobody in particular, that nobody was listening to. Wraith was standing apart in the dark, watching her cross the tarmac, and when she reached him, he nodded once. "Ready?" he said. "Yeah," she said. "We're ready." The engines came alive. The ramp opened. Rex walked up it without breaking stride, and found his spot and settled. And Maya sat beside him and put her hand on his back and felt him breathe, steady and certain. The same rhythm she had first felt in a kennel in Pendleton, when she learned that listening was worth more than talking. The aircraft lifted. The base fell away below. The dark came up around them, the way the dark always came up, full of everything that hadn't happened yet. Maya Cole was 22 years old. She had taken the shots that needed taking and put down the rifle when it mattered more. She had walked into things that should have stopped her and come out the other side still knowing who she was. She had her father's name and her father's rifle and her father's dog, and she had earned every one of them on her own terms. She had learned the difference between careful and safe, and she would spend the rest of her life making sure that difference meant something. The aircraft flew on through the dark, careful always, safe never. That was the gift her father had given her. She intended to use it.